If you're looking to build a piece of software or cryptocurrency token on the Fantom blockchain, this video will explain the entire process of getting your cryptocurrency token or software deployed on the Fantom mainnet. And if you need any help deploying your cryptocurrency solution or token, head over to my buymeacoffee.com page, link in the description, and I offer consulting there and can help you build your software project. So let me know at buymeacoffee.com. So the first thing we're going to want to do is download VS Code. This is where we're going to be writing all of our code, and it's going to be our environment for building smart contracts. Once we have downloaded VS Code, you want to go to Terminal and click New Terminal. Then we'll have a terminal in the bottom of the screen, and we're going to type npm install -g truffle. Okay, so now that is all done. The next thing we're going to do is install the Open Zeppelin library, which is going to have a whole bunch of useful smart contract templates for us to use when building our own projects. So you just want to type in npm install @openzeppelin/contracts, and I'll leave in the description exactly what you need to write in. Once that's finished, the next thing we want to do is type truffle init, and that's going to initialize our environment to build smart contracts. And as you can see, we now have a contracts section, which has a migrations.sol, which is basically just a smart contract that gets deployed to the blockchain to tell the anyone looking at the blockchain when your smart contracts were deployed onto the blockchain. We have a migrations folder, which is basically a bunch of JavaScript files which are going to be used as a build process for deploying our contracts. We have node modules, which is going to have all of the things we need in terms of libraries to build our smart contracts, such as that Open Zeppelin library that we just installed. And then we also have a test area where we can deploy tests on our smart contracts and on our deployment. We have a package lock.json, which is just something for our libraries and something to set up so that our libraries are all set up in our system and it understands where to find all of the pieces of code from those libraries in our system. And then we have one final thing here, which is the Truffle Config Js. And this is actually where we assign all of the variables to connect our project to the Fantom blockchain so that we can deploy it to the right area, to the right chain ID, and also set how much gas we want to spend when we're sending the transactions to the blockchain. Finally, there are two more things we need to install to make this process nice and seamless. The first one is we need to install the Truffle HDWalletProvider. And what that does essentially is allows you to have a mnemonic on your script, and then you can use this library to then sign transactions to push your stuff onto the blockchain. So just type in npm install @truffle-hdwallet-provider, and once that's finished, we're going to add one more thing which will make our lives much easier in the future, and that is to install the truffle-plugin-verify. Now this is going to allow us to verify all of our smart contracts once they're on the blockchain, which means anyone can come to the blockchain and read our code. And this is going to be super handy for when people ask about the code of your projects, or if you want to add your token to a cryptocurrency bridge like the Polygon bridge, for example. And so this is something that isn't necessarily completely necessary, but something that you really should do if you want to build out your project and integrate with other people in the future. So once those have installed, we are then going to look through some of the code I've now added onto the screen, and I'm going to share all of this code in the description of the video and also step through it with you right now so all of this makes sense. So what we've done here is we've gone into the contracts section and we've right clicked it and clicked new file, and we've called this contract CoolFantomToken. So this is actually going to be the cryptocurrency token that we're deploying onto the blockchain. And what we've done here is we've said, okay, the version of Solidity we're using is 0.8.12. We're importing a preset smart contract that was built by somebody else in the Open Zeppelin library. And this has everything we need to create a ERC20 token with a preset fixed supply. Now there are a whole bunch of other presets we could make. We could have an ERC20 token without a fixed supply. We could do an ERC721 token. I encourage you to have a look at all the different options you have, but for this video, we're just going to keep it simple and use this contract. The next line is saying we're making a contract called CoolFantomToken. You can call it whatever you like, and it is of type ERC20 preset fixed supply. So that is what was in the library for Open Zeppelin. We're saying our token is one of those types of contracts. The next line, what we're doing is we're setting an initial supply of our token. Now you can make any supply that you like, but we're going to go with a supply of 500,000. And the reason we've got 500,000 times 10 to the 18 is because Ethereum tokens in general, and you can change this if you like, but in general, they have 18 decimal places. And on the blockchain, all of the numbers are stored in way. And so we have to times that number by 10 to the 18 and store that value on the blockchain so that the blockchain kind of understands how much exactly we want to have of our supply without having to understand human readable values. Okay, finally, we have a constructor here, which is actually going to build and run any of the code that would be in this constructor when we build this token. Okay, so that's everything that we need for this smart contract. This is going to be an ERC20 token with a fixed supply. So now we have built the code required to deploy a contract. We actually need to now write the code to get that contract onto the blockchain. And that's where the migrations code comes in. This first initial migration is just going to put on the blockchain a timestamp of what we've done in the next step, which is actually deploying our smart contract. So we've made a new file here called deploy token. And the reason we've put a 2 at the front here and there's a 1 at the front here is that these files are actually going to be deployed one after another in alphabetical order. So we could have another JavaScript file called 3, do something else, and then that would be run afterwards. But for now, we only need to make one more file, and we're going to call it deploy token. And we're importing our token basically, and we're initializing this token. We're just going to call it my token in this script. And what this line is basically doing is saying, I'm making a token called my token in this script, and that is actually going to be a CoolFantomToken instance. After that, we have the module.exports function, and this is where everything happens basically. So the first thing we're going to do in here is we're going to run the deploy function of Truffle, which is basically now putting that token onto the blockchain. And the reason it says await here is because we're actually going to not run any more code underneath this until this is finished. So this line is actually deploying our token, our CoolFantomToken, onto the blockchain. After that, we're just going to log that we've actually done this, just so we can see in the terminal at the bottom when it has totally finished. So that's everything we need to do for creating the smart contract and then deploying the smart contract. The final file here is the truffle config.js file. Now we have a little bit of information here to go through, but it's quite simple, and I'll step through everything we need to know. So the first thing we're doing is we're importing the HDWalletProvider library that we just installed so that we can use our address and our wallet to then deploy these contracts onto the blockchain. Now you're going to need some Fantom token to do this on Fantom. If you're doing it on a different blockchain, you're going to need the underlying asset for that blockchain. What I did was I went to Binance and just bought some Fantom, sent it to my wallet, and you're probably only going to need less than 1 Fantom for this, so it shouldn't cost any more than a few cents to deploy this contract. Then you're going to have your mnemonic added into this file. Now obviously this is a very sensitive piece of data, so make sure to keep it safe, make sure to get rid of this or put it into a very secure place once you're finished deploying this contract. And there are more secure ways of doing this, but for the purposes of this video, we're just going to do a quick and dirty way of deploying a contract. Now we have all of the information for the network that we're deploying to, and also who's deploying it and all of that kind of stuff in this section here. So in the network tab, we're going with Fantom, and then we're using the HDWalletProvider that we just talked about, the library that we've imported. Now there's an RPC requirement here. You need to say which RPC you want to use to connect to the blockchain. And what an RPC is it's just a endpoint for you to send information and receive information on the blockchain. So this one here, rpc.ftm.tools, is a public RPC for Fantom, and you're welcome to use that one. If you have your own Fantom node, you can also put in the details for that as well, but this one is quick and easy to use and quite reliable. Next, we have the network ID of Fantom, which is 250, and this is a requirement to add if you want to deploy stuff on Fantom. Fantom's chain ID is 250, and the address that we're using here is my wallet address, but you'll need to add your own wallet address for this particular step. Now, this address needs to coincide with the account 0 of the mnemonic that we've put in at the top. So just make sure that the address you're adding is the account 0 of that mnemonic. Now, that's everything for networks. The next step is the compiler. So we're using version 0.8.12, but you're welcome to use a different version if you like. It's good to always stay at the highest version that is stable, just because they're going to be better for security and things like that, and you can use all the new features. We also have in the settings here an optimizer. and we've enabled it to true, and we've said optimize the opcodes in our contract 9,999 times. For this project, we probably don't actually need to use an optimizer, but if you're building a really big smart contract, space might be a constraint, and then using the optimizer will make your smart contract potentially smaller, and so it will actually fit into a block and get deployed onto the blockchain. Finally, we're using the Byzantium EVM version, and there are a few different EVM versions, but this one is the most up-to-date version. Now, we have a plugin here that we're also using, which is that truffle-plugin-verify that we were talking about before, and we're going to use this a little bit later to verify our smart contract once it has been deployed onto the blockchain. Finally, we also need an API key for using this verify plugin, and the way that you get this API key is you go to ftmscan.com, you create an account, you log in, and then go to the API key section, and it will allow you to then make a API key for free, and you can come back in here and just add it to this section of the code. So that's everything that we need to do. Now what we need to do is actually deploy this contract. So the step to deploy the contract is type truffle migrate --network Fantom, and that's it. So now we're going to leave this for a moment to run, and once it's run and been deployed onto the blockchain, the next step we're going to do is verify this contract, and then I'll show you on ftmscan this contract verified and published onto the blockchain. Okay, so now that has finished, we have a bit of a description here on the deployment process and how much everything cost and that kind of thing. And so mine here says replacing CoolFantomToken. That's because I did a test run of this video before I started recording. So I've actually made 2 tokens. And this is the transaction hash of our token and how long it took to make, and the contract address, and all the information we need. So this actually cost 0.007 Fantom to deploy, which is less than a cent. So it's very cheap to deploy contracts on Fantom. And the final thing that we're going to do now is verify this contract. So if we go to ftmscan, we can see the contract here, and we can also see that it completed and all that kind of thing. But if we go into the actual contract, we can see here that the contract has actually been verified as well. And that doesn't happen as standard if you are just deploying contracts to the blockchain. So the way that we have it so that it is verified like this, and we can see all of the different smart contracts that this contract is built off from using the Open Zeppelin library, we need to run one final command here, which is truffle run verify CoolFantomToken, and then we also need to specify the network again as being Fantom. So I'm going to leave that line in the description as well. All you have to do is click enter with that line, and after a couple of minutes, it will verify that token for you. And so that's everything you need to do to deploy a smart contract on the Fantom blockchain. If you get stuck anywhere in this process, make sure to reach out to my Buy Me a Coffee, and I will be happy to help you deploy the smart contract or really do any smart contract development on your project that you might need. Just send me a message and we can discuss your requirements. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.